up.
duty.
Good thing Alan showed up today, boy.
Out of luck again.
All right, good evening. This is Finance Committee, January 26, 2016. Tonight we're going to start off with Corey Godfrey from Clean Lakes Committee and talking about the Mill Pond proposal. And then we've got our updates on budgets and finances for this year and next budgets. And those are the main items, I guess. Those are all encompassing, I guess, when we talk about budgets. A lot of different topics there. So, start. Thank you very much. And sorry, introduce yourself again.
I'm John Folsom. I'm the director of the Clean Lakes Committee.
Very good. Thank you. All right.
All right. Well, thanks for having us tonight.
Sure.
Corey Godfrey from the Littleton Water Department, and I'm also the advisor to the Clean Lakes Committee. So John was able to come tonight, which is really helpful. So I'll give you just a sort of brief background of the Clean Lakes Committee and then this Mill Pond project that you heard a little bit about at your last meeting, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So the committee was formed back in, 1999? And John's been there ever since the beginning.
Wow.
They've been funded since the beginning from revenues from the cell tower on the Spectacle Pond property. And over the years, they've done a few different capital projects, but a lot of what they've focused on is annual herbicide treatments of a couple of the ponds in town to maintain aquatic invasive species, keep that under control. And so over the years, they've been able to build up a little bit of a reserve in their account. And one of the main reasons that they formed was to dredge Mill Pond and restore it to its original depth. And that project has had sort of fits and starts over the years. It's been in partnership with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who, if the project does go forward, they'll be funding 65% of the project costs, and the town would fund the other 35%. Now, one of the reasons for the need for dredging Mill Pond is that 100 years ago, it had a depth of about 12 feet, and now has a depth of about 3 feet. It's just filled in with sediment.
All it is, like 3 feet?
Yeah, that's the average depth. There's a few spots that are a little bit deeper. And that's occurred primarily from stormwater runoff, and years and years ago, before there were any environmental regulations, the Very Fine used to dump a lot of their waste in the stream that feeds down into the pond. And so the idea is to dredge the pond, restore it to its original condition. And so we're sort of at a turning point in the project. It's been many, many years that it's been sort of in the beginning stages, and some studies have been done. And now what we're looking to do is get town support to finalize the feasibility study in FY17, which would require an appropriation of $67,500. And if the town appropriates that, we would finalize the feasibility study within the year, and then move on to the design phase after that, at which point there'd be engineering designs drawn up.
Now, would that 67,500 or whatever it was come out of the funds that are in
Yes, yeah,
cell tower
that's the
funds
most
that are
important
accrued?
part of
Okay.
this is
So
all of
it would
the
transfer from that account to, okay.
Yep. Yeah, the entire project would be entirely self-funded by the cell tower revenue
Okay,
that's expected.
great, okay.
You like things like that?
Yeah.
Has there been an analysis of the sediment that's in the
Yes,
pond?
yes.
And is
Years
any of
ago.
it hazardous?
Yep, I don't know if it was 10 years ago or so, there was a study done.
At least 10 years ago, and I think, what was it, Basin 3 had evidence of some PCPs near the railroad tracks. It was just some little sample or something like that was picked up, and it was never traced to anything greater. No further real hazardous waste there at all. And this Basin 1 that we're talking about, the main basin where the dam is completely clean. Just full of nutrients, really, that grow all kinds of underwater weeds, and then pond-side weeds and so on, and that really needs to be removed in order to get healthy again.
So where will all that sediment and nutrients get deposited or dumped?
That's been one of the sticking points over the years. Originally the idea was to dredge the entire pond, all multiple basins of the pond. What we're talking about now is what we call Basin 1, which is just the main part of the pond, just north of Harwood Ave. Now, we've been unable to find a location to dispose of the material, which is why the project's been held up for so long, or one of the reasons why. So now the alternative plan is to move forward and dredge as much of the pond as we can and use that material to actually create higher quality wetland habitat at the, most likely at the inlets to the pond, so where streams feed into the pond, would be higher quality wetland habitat created there, which would filter any nutrients and sediment coming down into it and ensure that what we dredged remained at a depth that was acceptable. So that's the idea now, is what we'd like to move forward with.
Who comes up with those ideas? Who is the scientists and the people,
Yeah.
that engineers that figure this stuff out?
It's the Army Corps of Engineers.
They do, yeah?
They have a whole team of people that do these kinds of projects. They actually just completed almost the exact same project in Milford just this past year, where they did exactly that. They dredged part of the pond and then used that material to create wetland habitat on the edge of the pond. So that's the idea we're moving forward with now. During the design phase, they would figure out all the details of that, exactly where those wetlands would go and which parts would be.
And what's the end use of the pond after it's dredged?
Well, it would have it'd be much deeper, and so there'd be much more recreational opportunities. They wouldn't, in the summertime right now, nobody wants to go in that pond. It wouldn't look like that at all in the summer. It'd be a regular looking pond, like Long Pond or something even higher quality than that maybe. People would be able to go canoeing and fishing and kayaking and that sort of thing, and it would just have a much better aesthetic appeal as well.
Now, is there any danger of not doing the, as you head towards the depot, not doing the left side, the pond between Harwood and the tracks? If you're not doing that, you're doing the downstream one, is there danger of just that silt flowing down in and just negating some of the work that you're doing? Or
There could be if you weren't to establish the wetlands there to help protect the main part of the pond from that occurring. So the wetlands would be established, and when they were established, there would be sort of a wall, for lack of a better term, constructed there. But that wall, over a period of a few years, would biodegrade as the wetland established itself, and it would be firm land with tree roots and that sort of thing holding it in place.
okay,
So would vegetation be introduced to create the wetland, or is it something?
Native vegetation would be, yeah.
Okay.
so is there a longer-term plan to do the first basin, or the one on the left side of the road, or not
Well,
in the future, or is that?
Ideally, we would be able to dredge the entire thing.
Right.
But it would just be so expensive to do that. I'm not sure that we couldn't do it within just the cell tower revenues. So to keep it sort of budget neutral in a way, we kind of have to focus just on this main basin of the pond. We're looking at a cost of up to $3 million to do that, of which 65% would be covered by the Army Corps of Engineers, and the town would pay 35%, so a little over $1 million.
So the $3 million is for the one basin? Okay.
Is there public access to that? So there is, so?
Yep, the Clean Lakes Committee built a canoe launch 10 years ago, or a little less.
I was going to say 6 or 7 years ago, but yeah.
I don't know where that is. Check it
Yeah,
out.
it's what's the road? There's a Lake Warren Drive.
Mike Horn Drive's down there?
Yeah.
And so how much parking is available down there for people that would want to take
4
advantage?
spaces on the property, and then you could park right on the side of the road as well.
Okay.
And as part of the project, we'd look at potentially expanding that a little bit. Right now, it's suitable for canoes, and it has a little bit of a steep grade to get down to the water. So we'd look at potentially re-engineering that as well. That would be a
Okay.
minor cost compared to the rest of the project.
So when do we do the property evals for those houses along there, before or after this happens?
We just went through
We'll
the
mention
files.
that.
I did take a look at the budget. Corey was kind enough to fill out the complete budget documents that the other departments submit for their budgets. We'll treat this much like we do the cable enterprise, not the cable enterprise, the cable fund, in that the budget will be appropriated in the general fund, just like any other department. It will be fully offset by a transfer from the cell tower revolving fees. So, and what I did is I went out to 2024, just to give you a multi-year projection to show with what we're programming for cell tower revenues, what we anticipate the operating budget for this department to be, and the debt service for Mill Pond at its maximum of 1 million, where the cost might be a little bit less than that. You think the project cost might come in around 2.5 million, making our third less. But just at that, you can see that the account kind of dips to its low point in fiscal 2023 at 17,000, and then starts to build back up its reserves to the previous levels. To date, there's about $15,000 in the account. And that's been an accumulation of a number of years of cell tower payments that have come in that have not been expended. What we used to use this for is to pay debt service on some property that was acquired up by the lake. I don't know what parcel it was exactly, but, because it was before my time.
Before my time as well.
Yeah. But that debt service has been retired, and since that, the money's just been building up year after year. So this shows, at least, through 2024, it's sustainable at its maximum, borrowing amounts, so we're confident that,
So the Army Corps' contribution is in-kind service, or is it cash?
No, their contribution's cash. And
Okay.
then one thing I should mention is our contribution can include in-kind service. So any time that I spend on it, for example, or any kind of real estate transaction costs, things like that are considered in-kind. So that can be counted towards the match. So decrease the 1 million that we'd have to borrow, might maybe
Be less.
decrease it to 900,000 over the course of a few
But
years.
does the township have to front the money and then get reimbursed?
Yeah, so we would need to borrow for a 15-year term, I think.
15 is the max.
And then we'd, pay that down with the cell tower revenues over 15 years.
So the Army pay their portion up front, and then we have to borrow our million or whatever it is?
Yeah, they would apply their payment before we actually secure the borrowing.
Right.
So we'd only borrow for the million, or an amount less, hopefully.
Right, go ahead.
So the plan is to come forward at the annual or the special, or when?
Well, tomorrow night, we're meeting with the selectmen to hopefully get their support and have them sign a letter of intent that would go to the Army Corps of Engineers, basically stating that they intend to bring an article to the town meeting and have the town vote on it. I'm not sure whether it would be the annual or the
Is
special.
there
The
any-
motion here is proposed for the annual, but we can always, if it needs to be the
I
special.
don't know if there's a benefit to do, I mean, it's a half hour, it's a half hour in the middle of the regular town meeting. So if there's a benefit to do it at the special to gain a couple months, I don't know whether it is or not.
The difference is if you authorize it in the special town meeting, you can start expending it right away. If you authorize it for the annual, it starts July 1st.
So
So,
that's the only difference, and it's on the same night, so it's not like we're saying there's a whole nother town meeting to do it. It's just you do it between 7:30 and whatever the end of the special town meeting is.
So once the vote is taken, how long does it take for you guys to initiate commencing on the work, the engineering and that kind of stuff?
Well, the Army Corps would love to get started immediately, so I guess the special town meeting might be a better option. We could get them started sooner.
yep.
They've already done a lot of work. They've already themselves spent almost $400,000 doing feasibility study work. And this 67.5 is just to complete that study, so they'd love to wrap it up and get it finished and be able to move on with the rest
The
of the
scope has changed substantially over the years, and their aims have been different from year to year. So they want to hone down on what we can move forward on at this point, and with the support of the town.
So you want to be
they'll bring it.
shovel-ready for the summertime?
Well, no, so the way the project would be phased is the 67.5 would allow them to finish the feasibility study within FY17, and then the design work would begin probably in FY18, right at the beginning of FY18. That would probably take close to a year, and then FY19 or FY20 is when I think the construction would actually begin.
Jeez.
Wow.
So it'll take a few years to really get going, and then
They don't
The
move with
glacial
great
pace
purpose.
of your government does.
For some reason why this is.
The frustrating thing is it goes through
how
an
it
approval
works.
process.
Yeah.
So the
Yay.
state approves, and everybody signs off on it, and any interested committee weighs in, and it goes through that whole check mark series. So we're really interested in honing things down into an accomplishable project.
Wow.
And moving forward, because,
Idea.
again, as Corey alluded to, the delays we've had working with the Army Corps, we are now at the top of their list in terms of priority, and we say, well, it's now or never almost. We'd go back to the bottom of the list and we'd struggle back through another
Yeah.
decade. We have no interest in doing that.
Well, there's no reason anyway. I mean, you're self-funding it anyhow, so there's really kind of a no-brainer, really, right?
To a large extent.
You're set to go?
we're
What
hoping-
would be the downside for going forward?
We think of no downside to going forward. We've been anxious to do this for over a decade now. and to take on more than, well, as it was, we were going to take on more than we could handle. But we've honed that down
Right.
now, and we're anxious to make some progress and get some support community-wide. Be wonderful.
So once the engineering's complete, who puts the project out for bid?
Army Corps covers all of that. They put it up to bid, they manage the project.
They do.
They do all of that. So I would have some amount of oversight, but my presence would hardly be required. I'd probably stop down there every day to see
The
it.
dredging operation requires their involvement.
Yeah, I would think so. Okay, good.
How does that
You
fit?
have to get that
I'm-
barge up Beaver Brook.
Yeah. So where does the funding for this come from the government? I mean, is this like interior or what? Yeah, what is this?
It's, well.
I'm just curious. This is just,
Maybe I don't. It's,
Probably
There was
Beaver
a-
Brook's a navigable
it's called
waterway.
the Water Resource Development Act of 1996. Like that's the authority under which it is.
okay.
I'm not sure of all the details exactly, but they do a lot of projects all over the country.
Must be the Department of the Interior, I would think. Yeah.
Okay. Tax dollars at work, that's a good one. Glad to hear that.
The Army does sometimes build things instead of break things.
And they break them well.
All right. A little on my side, that's all I know. All right, so this is interesting, actually. Were you involved in the stuff at Long Lake, too? They built,
Yes.
yeah, okay, so you did that, too.
Yeah, the restoration project there was very successful and funded through the state with an awful lot of grants and things as well, which we're also eligible to apply for this as our, part of our contribution. We'll certainly pursue that as well.
Excellent.
And how deep will it be when it's finished?
The aim is to get it down to 12 feet, because that's what we believe the original depth was 100 years ago. That's what we'll be looking for.
So they must have done boring, so when you get down to 12 feet, are you expecting to hit sand or rock or
Yeah.
what?
Yeah,
Sand?
so there's basically, right now, there's 9 feet of just muck and peat, and then you get down to sand and gravel.
Probably
which is what the
56
original-
Chevys. Finally find Jimmy Hoffa.
We understand the base is actually sort of a gravel base, so it'll be very clear that we've removed most of the silt and
Yeah.
materials down to that point.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe an aside question. I see on the back sheet, which is the capital for the Clean Lakes Committee, there's 100,000 for 17, 18, and 19 for the stormwater management contribution. And
Yeah, well, so there's a new permit coming up from the EPA to address stormwater in all urbanized communities in Massachusetts, which is more than half of the towns in the state. And so we're still trying to wrap our heads around exactly how much that's going to cost the town. But recognizing that the Clean Lakes Committee's mission is to protect and restore water quality, it seemed like an appropriate contribution to make.
Use of those
use
funds. Okay.
funds, yeah.
And-
Because that'll address all of the lakes and streams in town. As that program gets up and running, that'll have a more sort of gradual but long-term impact on improving water quality.
So this is just a plug number for the revenue from that?
The 100,000 is sort of a, I guess you could call it a placeholder in a way.
Yeah, it's actually a drawdown on the existing balance over the next, it's a phased-in drawdown over the next few years.
So it doesn't come from revenues from,
the cell towers.
It comes from the cell tower revenue.
oh, okay, but,
If it were not to, it would probably have to come from the general fund or some
Right.
other source.
Or fees or something.
So is this really for capital at this point, or is this just saying we're going to spend something?
It's going to be on capital to address the stormwater permit issues. So it'll come through as part of the capital
But are we really
plan.
buying capital here, or is it just money that we think we're going to have to spend for something?
It's
'Cause
going to
I-
be engineering. It's money we're going to have to
So
spend.
it's engineering, okay,
Yes,
but it's not like we've got to have people here doing these reports, that's not coming out of a
No,
capital
it's
fund like
drafting the
this.
plan, the mapping
Okay,
out
that's all right,
the,
I'm
all
fine
of
with that.
the.
And so that also shows there's a limit here. I was concerned that somehow we were putting the ongoing cost, and I'm like, well, that's not going to work.
We're estimating that the 3-year costs to implement the program
Right.
are going to be in excess of $300,000.
Okay, all right.
So there's some portion that the town's going to have to come up with,
Yeah.
and we'll have to figure out how to
Okay,
manage
okay.
that. But this is a huge,
Okay, no, I understand,
Help
that
towards
is
the-
huge, yeah. That's good, me. Anybody else? You
is
guys
there
got some
a
good
plan
questions.
to do anything with Forge Pond? Littleton side?
Well, the committee did decide this year to begin doing a little more work there. Historically, we've focused more on Long Pond, Spectacle Pond, and a little bit on Mill Pond in the past. But we'll be expanding our aquatic invasive species management that we do in Spectacle Pond and Long Pond. We'll be expanding that to Forge Pond to control some of those issues there. And some water quality monitoring down there. Also, one of the other capital projects for FY17 was to install flow monitoring devices at both Spectacle Pond and Forge Pond. So one of the things the committee wants to begin doing is collecting more data on both flow and water quality, and so that'll include Forge Pond.
Okay.
So will this project include replacing the dam down at, right at 195?
No pond, no.
No.
No. That's going to remain,
Okay.
That dam's owned by Mass DOT.
I was going to say, out of our jurisdiction.
Yeah, they have no interest in touching the dam. They just want to leave it as it is.
Okay. That's interesting. So if they decide to take the dam down, we don't have a pond. I mean, I'm just, you know.
Well, they wouldn't do that because then, if there was no dam there, there would be no flood control at all for the highway there. And so if there was a really big storm, 100-year storm or something like that, they'd run the risk of washing out the whole highway right there, the culvert underneath it. So that's why they want to maintain that dam there for flood control.
Are the gates in it or adjustable? I thought it was
It
just.
is adjustable.
It is.
But it's locked at this point.
Right, sure. Okay. All right. Sorry for the dumb questions,
Oh,
but
no,
just
no,
said.
there are no dumb questions.
Great.
The Army Corps investigated the possibility of dismantling it at one point.
Really?
They wanted to cover all their bases.
Sure, a new project, gotta look at all these
Great.
things, right? All right, thank you very much for coming, appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting us.
That's good, thanks for,
Great.
yeah, and doing good things for the town.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And
We didn't think it was
long-term
gonna be
service
that
on a
big a
committee,
struggle.
we don't, that's great. What's that?
We didn't think it was going to be that big a struggle, but it has become one. We're interested in getting a big check mark here. So.
Good.
Thank you for your
Thank you
It's
very
good to
much.
put a face to the Clean Lakes Committee.
I know.
'Cause
Right.
I hear about it all the time, but,
We operate in the shadows.
yeah.
We're coming out.
Now you'll see people at the grocery store, they'll say, I saw you on TV.
There you go, there you go.
You're saying, you watch that stuff?
That says a lot about people, doesn't it?
We've got to get a life, right?
Thank you all for your time.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in.
All right, that was it. Very interesting, very helpful.
Yeah, that's great. As part of the budget update, would you mind if I just gave you a quick roadway?
No, you go forward, what
I
you
know
got on
guys
your
have been
list, and then
asking, like, the
we'll,
roadway
we
plan.
got
and
some more
what's going
things,
on.
yeah, going, so yeah, go
So
ahead.
the selectmen have scheduled tomorrow night an update, and they're going to have a presentation given by Street Scan, which is the pavement management company that did the whole assessment. It's pretty slick technology, and I don't want to get into too much of what they're going to, discuss, but if you're bored and you want to watch it on TV, it should be interesting. But I do want to share some of the results of the survey that they did and kind of tell you, where we are now, where we've been with roadway improvement. So the first memo that I have just kind of explains how we've handled all of this in the past and why it came about. And it was basically back in 2008 at the request of the board in order to address the roadway systems in some significant fashion. Up until that point, we were just basically taking whatever Chapter 90 funds we had, applying it to whatever distance it would get us down a road that needed some repairs, and then we were done. So what we did is, Jim Clyde had a pavement management system in place back in 2004, which he had done a similar study on. So we got a list of roads that we figured were going to take us 10-plus years to address, and we plugged them into a system where we were not going to be borrowing outside the levy. We're going to try and manage everything inside the levy. We're going to appropriate some funds inside the levy towards roadway repairs along with the Chapter 90 funds, and we've been able to do that. So currently, we're spending about $1 million a year between Chapter 90 funds and money budgeted inside the levy on addressing roadways. So with that, we've been able to do some much more significant work. We did Goldsmith Street first. This was funded pretty much entirely with state grant work at $3.2 million, and the town did make a commitment and borrowed just over $1 million for water improvements to address that road fully. We,
Excuse me, so the 1 million is in the 3.2, or it's
no, it's an additional.
That was additional for the
3.2 was just the
water
road
works.
and the sidewalks, and then.
And the state, that was state funded.
Yes,
then
and the million,
is
it was a
town.
TIP program.
And water improvements, meaning just the water lines for those residents down there and so on, right?
The road was open, the water line
Okay,
was.
so that was the time to do it,
bad,
yeah.
was-
Okay, yeah.
we
Did
took
that
care of
include
it.
drainage?
Drainage and everything,
Drainage,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
That road was a major, I
remember.
remember everybody going up to town meeting
Terrible.
every year. Goldman Street,
And
nope.
they wanted it, and then they did it, and it was that real dry summer, so everybody had dust in their houses.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I still
be careful
remember
what
that,
you wish for.
that plywood
Fine,
sign.
exactly.
Yes. Following that, we did Crane Road, Bruce Street, Whitcomb Road, Harvard Road, totaling about 3.9 million. We did Neshoba Road in fiscal 2015 at a cost of $1.8 million. We pursued two borrowing authorizations, $1 million in the May 2015 town meeting, combined with the $2 million that was previously authorized. Those were leveraged with the Chapter 90 funds that we're receiving and the amounts of budgeted in the operating budget to do New Estate as well as Nagog Hill, the estimated amount for Nagog Hill, because those were significant roads. Those cost, a lot of money. New Estate is about 2.7 million. We're estimating 2.1 for Nagog because there's significant drainage issues and sidewalks and other needs that need to be taken care of. So those are the roads, that takes us up to like where we've committed. So Nagog is in design. It's estimated to go out for construction next year. New Estate should be finished construction this year. So it's kind of like, we have roads in place for the next, but we weren't really sure if they're the right roads. It's been over 10 years, probably 12 years since the study was done. So that's why we wanted Street Scan to come out and take a look at, where we're at. So they went through, did a review of the town, they drove every town road that we have. It's pretty interesting that our list is not far from their list. Some of the roads that we had on were the same roads. A little bit different priority order, some got pulled in a year or out a year, but we weren't that far off, so that was kind of encouraging. This list is a list of the worst roads. So this does not take into consideration traffic, benefit value, this is just condition. So while these roads,
Oh, I see.
might be ranked worse, they might be dead-end roads that are not heavily traveled. But it's interesting to see, where the worst
Yep.
rated roads are. In the next slide, let's see, they kind of go through how they evaluate what the costs are going to be. Do they need to do reconstruction, rehabilitation, preventative work? And that depends on the PCI or pavement condition and index. And that's something that they calculate, and they'll talk about tomorrow.
But there was also the discussion, I know, that comes up all the time about these roads, do you do it right, and do all the underlayers, or do you just pave them over and then just do it
Right.
again in a few years? So does that depend on the road?
Yes, it
Okay.
depends on the condition of the road. So you can see the colors on the screen.
Yep.
Some of those are reclamation, some of them are rehabilitation, and some are preventative.
Okay.
So they've made determinations based on the underlying conditions of the roads and the existing structures that are in place. Well, if the road has drainage and it just needs pavement, then just reclaim it and pave it. So they're able to analyze this, and this is a portal that Jim Clyde and the highway people can actually tap into and drill down into quite a bit further.
So all this information resides on a server elsewhere?
Yes. However, it is our data, and it's in the contract that if we want it updated, they'll come out and do an update at a much lesser cost than the initial analysis. But it's our data, and if we want to leave the service, we can export it into whatever format that would be benefit to us, and take it with us. So that's in the contract.
So, according to this, it looks like we have 35 or 36 miles of roads that either need reclamation or rehabilitation.
Correct. And you can see that's about 41% with, rehabilitation and 18% are reclamation. The good news, it's better than it used to be, so. And these provide you with the cost assumptions that they use. which, Jim Clyde appears, at least just on the initial overview, seems as reasonable, but, we need to kind of get into that tomorrow night and make sure that they are.
Okay.
So our weighted average is 65. So
Weighted average of, I'm sorry, 65, what's that?
65, instead of being 100%, our weighted average for our roads is 65. 100% being great,
Oh.
0 being bad.
I see.
Our roads are 65. So they're estimating that we need over $12 million in
Sure, no
roadway work to restore the entire city roads. And that included contingency and police costs, but again, that's an estimate in today's dollars. Considering drainage, sidewalk work, and associated full-depth reconstruction, the backlog would be $26 million.
So what does the 12 million get us? Does it get us these 10 roads? What is the 12 million?
They're going to go through this tomorrow night, but my understanding, just in the review that I've seen, is that the 12 million is just to resurface. It doesn't include drainage, it doesn't include sidewalks. It's just to get the roads into a pavement condition that is.
For these high priority roads? Or for all those roads?
These are
That's in
for,
here, it's the backlog summary, the 12 million is probably here. And when it says backlog summary, and it shows
Right.
the estimated repair costs.
I think it's for the 22 miles that they're targeting, but
Oh,
I'll check
And this
that.
is
Okay.
just, so this is to treat
We don't
them
know.
as the middle level and grind and pave, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And to do design and drainage and all that is 26.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. So it's probably somewhere in between there.
Yeah, so this is,
Some of the roads are in pretty tough shape.
right.
Okay.
So it looks like there might be something missing in the heading on this backlog summary. It said estimated repair costs in 2 columns with drastically different numbers for reclamation. So it was one with,
One is with the last
With
column is with
drainage.
drainage and sidewalks and
so I think
everything.
there's
Yeah.
Yeah.
something missing in the heading there.
yeah.
Okay, so, oh, I see.
Yeah,
What they're
that's-
saying is that we have 10.9 miles in the category that they would say should be reclamation. And if you only grind and pave, it's 6 million. If you do the reclamation, it's 19 million, almost
And that
20 million.
includes all the water lines,
I don't know
drainage,
the water lines.
police
All the drainage,
details.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the 10.9 miles to just repair the road, so to just reclaim it is 6 million. To reclaim it, install drainage, repair drainage that's associated with it, and do sidewalks, it's 19 million.
Well, it'd be helpful to have that in the heading.
Yeah, yeah.
I think, I mean, I don't know, that's sort of how I read it, but I don't know whether that's right or not.
The other thing that they did, they were able to capture are outlets and catch basins, manholes, hydrants in the survey as they drive around, because there's, cameras, there's visual, they can, which will help us with our MS4 permit stuff. So we've already shared this with,
That's great.
that came out as kind of
That's
a,
good.
oh,
Give you
wow.
some money then, yeah.
Is there any likelihood that the stormwater management program is going to come back and say that we have to put in drainage here, there, or someplace else? That would then drive the road costs more towards the reclamation than the repair. I mean, I don't know what's involved with that, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the stormwater, the new permit will require additional structures to be installed, or if it's more of, just focusing on monitoring the existing. I know that, through the permit process, they require certain structures to be
Right.
installed, and we have those best practices in place now. The monitoring is not
The next
something, it's,
question.
now they want to see the monitoring, and they want them done on, different periods. So you got to flag every structure, you have to map it, you have to GPS it, you have to show that you've inspected it through some, reasonable process, and test it.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So at the rate that we've been doing roads, $1 million a year. If we only reclaimed it, it looks like 6 to 7 years, we could do that 10 miles. Is that how I would read this?
Yeah.
If we decided not to do the big project.
Yeah, if we did no drainage or, yes, correct. We just went over it.
Some of these roads could be eligible for some of the state funds and so on, like some of these other ones were, or not?
These are town roads, they're not state
Okay,
roads, so it's
New
not like
State Road was
119,
consider-
110.
Or Goldsmith was
No.
considered a state road?
Yeah, it
a
qualified for that.
They called it a connector between Route 2 and 2A and 119.
Interesting.
That's why because they were trying to get traffic off of Route 2.
Right.
So I don't know whether
I
Foster,
was in
now that the
Foster Street,
train
right?
station,
I don't know if the train
you
station.
know, we've got the
That's a
train
good point,
station, the
yeah.
MBTA's trying to get more cars off the road there, that might,
Yeah, that's
might be something.
certainly something that we can pursue.
for people to look at.
We have no problem asking for.
yeah,
Right,
no,
right.
yeah, no, it's, because
No, that's a great
there's
idea.
a heck of a lot of traffic on that and Harwood when the trains come in.
Okay, so
And it's
we have
important for
our
them.
assets.
Emergency vehicles to get to Route 2 and things like that, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Worth the question, I guess.
So this would show like the increase in the pavement condition index, depending on how much money we spent a year. So currently, we're spending $1 million a year, which isn't even on here, but at $1.5 million, you can see the pavement condition index really hovers around 65, a little higher than 65. That's kind of where we are right now,
So we're just maintaining.
maintaining the existing quality. If we spent, $3 million, you can see the pavement condition goes up in year 4 to 67. Still not a huge increase, but an increase.
For an extra 2 million, you don't get a whole lot of percentage, do you?
No, you
Got a
don't,
lot of road.
2.5%.
right?
And this is pretty much the same data, just in a bar graph format.
Are there any benchmarks from other towns around or anything like that where that number?
Where they are versus where we are.
Yeah, I mean, that would be something we would want to ask them, because
Yeah.
they've done a few communities now. They were very popular at MMA, and there were a lot of people
Sure.
looking to get this done, because it's a great service to avail yourself of, because it's quick.
Right.
They come out in a few days. They have all of this
So I
data.
suppose some of it depends on what kind of road I mean, if you have a lot of major roads and those, it's more important that those are in good shape than if you got a dead-end road and not maybe, so it may be terrible shape, but it's not that.
Right.
If
Well,
you have
and
a lot more really rural areas,
And
and it
that's
might
what
be.
they're going to talk about tomorrow night, is like the prioritization parameters. So they look at, is it a major collector, a minor collector? How much traffic's going through it?
Yeah.
What's the condition, combined with that? So you get a benefit value rather
Right,
than
I
just
see.
a pure
Yeah.
condition value.
Do they take into account any type of property line issues like they had up on
New Estate.
New Estate?
Well, New Estate was a private road, so they wouldn't have done it. We didn't do any private roads.
Oh, well, how about Nagog? Aren't there some property line issues up there?
No, they did not, take into consideration, as far as I know, any easements that might need to be acquired or anything like that. They are, I believe, assuming that the roads that they're going down are.
Where they're supposed to be?
Right.
Good
Which
assumption.
in
Be a big assumption.
New England,
I know.
not
Not a
always.
lot of single-family homes on that road anyway, so.
So based on that, this is their ranking of benefit value, roads. Which you can see, New Estate's there, Nagog Hill is there. And those roads were programmed. We had Tehadawon in our forecast too for the future. Harwood, Meadowbrook, these are familiar roads that we have been looking at for the next,
Why
5 or
would
6 years.
Fletcher Lane show up on there? Isn't that a dead-end road? It doesn't connect anything except Goldsmith?
I'm not sure. I don't know if the pavement condition, I don't know that area that.
No, it's,
Yeah.
it's a little short street. You know where Brian lives? Fletcher Lane?
I think so.
Or am I thinking of the wrong road?
No.
I don't know.
I don't know where it is.
Don't know.
All right.
Go take a look, drive down it and see.
I know it was, like number,
It's
3 on the
terrible
worst road.
condition, but
yeah, maybe there's more traffic on it than, I mean, is it near the school or anything? Is it something that is a cut-through for traffic for the school, or, I don't know.
it's on Goldsmith Street up from Shaker Lane,
So maybe it's
school.
school traffic, maybe there are.
but it's a dead-end road. I mean,
It is a dead
it
end?
Now, one
doesn't
of these
collect enough.
showed, one of these places, I kept seeing some of these roads listed, they were connectors to Fletcher. Wasn't it on here, Fletcher Lane?
Lakeview.
So several of these, well, okay, Lakeview,
Well,
I
none-
thought there were others, but you're right, it's just those two. And one of them is itself, and the other one is Lakeview, that's it. So, yeah,
Yeah, it's a tiny little,
I don't know.
tiny little dead-end street. Just
Yeah,
looked it up.
Lakes, Sure.
So Foster Street came up as their number one for, being addressed, so
Now,
that,
Is that the entire length of Foster? or
He
just
said, I was looking on here,
part
it
of
says Foster Street to Foster Street, it doesn't say.
It
doesn't say.
right.
Well, how
it's-
long is it?
When you go through the portal, it tells you exactly, how long, the distance that they're identifying as being in need of repair. And it might be, one section needs this and another section doesn't. I think, does Foster Street already have drainage on it? So, it does.
The area,
208 feet.
area between Harwood and where Foster turns is
Yeah,
very,
it's
very
they're only talking
narrow.
about 208 feet.
Just gotta be down to where it turns down, probably.
Yeah.
Which is fine, I don't think the rest of it's that bad
Well, if you
anyway.
look at the map, it's, the end up by Taylor is green, which says just do the tarring, the drip tar, and then there's blue and then red for a very short period, and there's a bunch of blue. And down by Fay Park, it's green, which,
Don't want it too good, people speak too much. But the part up by the old town hall there and so on, where the fire station is, that was really bad for a while. The patching really helped a lot.
yep,
Last winter, that was awful. But anyway,
all right.
all right, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it just, at least. it
So
will give
tomorrow
a-
night is just to get the discuss, just to have this presentation?
Yes.
But is one of the budget items that's being discussed is this, we put more money of capital into roadways? Is that part of the discussion?
Well, that's going to, part of the discussion is, are they happy with the list in priority order, which would mean, we deal with New Estate and Nagog, and then we drop Foster Street in, and then I can plan my financing going out. And part of that is it a 10-year plan that they want to see to address these roads, or is it a, different number of years? It's going to look different if they want to address them in 5 years than 10 or 15.
And do they have any projection as to, whatever the categories are, but we've got 10 miles in the reclamation category, and if we take 10 years to take care of those, how much of the 25, do we then have 25 miles,
Right,
the
right,
next
exactly.
25 all of a
Exactly.
sudden into that
It's-
reclamation category?
losing-
Or
losing-
does it just
losing
sort
ground, right?
of ooze into that, or I don't know?
Right. So, we just got this info yesterday, so what I'm gonna do is drop it into the roadway plan that we have now, which I have the cash flow and the financing, projected, so I can either, spread it out. I'll put a draft together as a start, for the board to review, but,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's, obviously, if we can put some more capital money towards it, it's gonna address them that much more quickly.
That's more money inside the levy.
Right.
I think if we're going to do that, we ought to look, see if we can find a dedicated revenue stream. Another big debt coming off somewhere. I don't think we should be taking,
All good discussions. We have a lot of roads, so it's not like we don't have the need. But I was pleased to see that, at least we weren't really out of line with what we had going forward anyway, so that was kind of encouraging. The system that we used prior seems to have held up. Obviously, it wasn't supported anymore, we had to do something different, but, so this kind of validates where we
but we're
are.
doing things. And before, we were just
Patching.
tamping it down,
Right.
But did they make any recommendation as to, when they say a road is in the reclamation classification, do they make any recommendation that you do the whole McGilla, or you do the $6 million fix, or do they recommend you do the $19 million fix, or do they just say, this is the condition and you figure out what to do?
I believe that they provide you with the data, which is, if you do, if you do reclamation only, here's the cost. And if you do full, repair with drainage and everything, here's the cost. And it's more of a policy decision on,
You figure out what you want to do.
what you
Well,
want
but
to
the
do.
other part of that equation is what's the life of that road then after you do it, if you do one versus the other? I mean, that's
See,
expected life, right? No, because
They
of
don't
weather
tell
and
you
all those
that.
other things, but that would be an important.
But they have the chart in here that tells you that you really must do full reclamation.
Yeah.
Because over time, doing it the other way, you end up 2 percentage points higher than you were overall
You
in
just
all
done
the
it right
roads.
anyway, right? I mean, it's
That's
typical.
true, that's true.
And-
Which
and-
is-
And if you do the full reclamation, you've got a longer life expectancy for the pavement.
Oh, I would think,
Yeah,
for sure.
All it takes is money.
that's it.
And the other thing we implemented with this road plan is the 5-year moratorium on road cuts, unless it's emergency work.
On
So
what?
roadway cuts. So if somebody wants to convert to natural gas from oil.
Oh.
And there's a gas line in the street, in Goldsmith Street, it's a good example. You get a request, I want to change, I want to cut into that brand-new road, which happened right after, they paved it. But they have, a 5-year moratorium on that. So we do have that if a road's been redone for 5 years, unless it's emergency work, obviously, we're not going to.
Yeah, well, you do that in conjunction, not with National Grid and all the other people. You tell them, we're going to redo this road.
Yep.
If you got to do anything, you do it now,
Do it now.
because once we've done it, you're not going to get in there for X number of
Yep.
timeframes.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's,
That's good.
that helps too. So it'll be an interesting, I
How much did
apologize,
this
I don't have
cost?
that much on the
That's okay.
technology.
About how much
but
did this cost? Have these guys come in and do that with their machines?
I want to say it was like 28, I think it was 28,000. They did every road. They gave us all the data, the portal, the unlimited
Right.
access into it.
You said part of that though too, it's not just pictures, they actually have that equipment that actually looks down and can tell the
Yeah.
structure and so on.
Yep.
That's
It's pretty
huge.
neat,
That's huge.
so. But I wanted to share that with you, so
Okay.
we'll have more information. Like I said, I just got it yesterday, so we'll update all of the financials going forward. I do have on tomorrow night for the budget, they're going to go through a capital update review with police, fire, and highway, just to get a sense of, what their recommendations are going to be for those departments. So they are meeting now with the department heads to kind of go through their.
The other one's coming in after that, or is it just those three get?
There's just those 3 scheduled for now. There may be more after that, but so they have all of the information on their requests again. The other thing that is on that list is the Castle in the Trees project. You might remember we got $100,000 from the state to address the facility there. 75,000 in that range has been provided in-kind services from Cataldo to do all of the demolition work and site work prep for the new structure, so that's huge. They've done fundraising and have raised about $25,000 in donations, and they're looking for $100,000 from the town to finish the job. So I put it in at the request of the chair to have it addressed, because we got the state match for it. It's, we've got a lot of in-kind services and things for the project. So one of the discussion points that might happen is whether it is regular capital money that gets appropriated for this, or whether it's CPC money. In either case, if it's regular capital money, we can run it through CPC and appropriate it out just to get the match. That will help, get
Right.
more money into CPC, and, I can't get 30-something%, anywhere else, so.
Right.
So that'll happen tomorrow night. The fire station discussion, obviously.
Well, what will
with the design.
happen though? Just that they vote that, put on the list?
I'm hoping that, that they make
Okay.
their recommendation
All
to
right.
support the articles. They might not. They
Right.
might want to wait another meeting to do that, but
Okay.
I'm hoping I can start locking down some of these, the station design is on there, I kind of talked about that separately. As a matter of course, what Snooty and I are doing is going through the budget worksheets. I'm going to update them all with the new state aid figures that were released this past Friday. They're projecting a 4.3% increase in local aid, but I don't know what the assessments are going to do. They've said that there's going to be a large increase in Chapter 70, but they haven't pushed that down to a percentage, and that's kind of a misnomer anyway because it's based on student population, so it could be, a 4% increase, but if you lost a number of students or picked up a number of students, that can change the formula in what you get. But in any case, they're proposing an increase to Chapter 70. We're noticing an increase in local excise. We just released our first commitment for fiscal 2016. This is the big one, and it's 100,000 more than it was last year. More cars, more people, newer cars. It's just, it's a shift. So I need to adjust for that. And the other thing that I want to do is run through in the capital plan, the funding that we have reserved for capital is about $2 million a year, and half of that's from the levy and half of that's from undesignated fund balance, which we try and make sure gets replenished every year. So the effect of the policy recommendations that came out of the financial policies group, I know they haven't been adopted, but I want to run them through the financials and kind of show you what that would look like. What it would mean, we'd put a certain amount of undesignated fund balance into capital stabilization to save for future projects, like the fire station, as an example. And then when the fire station is ready to go to bond, we bond less than, what the project, instead of borrowing $7 million, you borrow $4 million. And that debt service savings mitigates what you were going to take out of the capital plan in outward years. So the original discussion was, well, if the debt service is $600,000 or $700,000, out of that $2 million, we'll take $700,000 for the fire station and only spend $1.3 million on capital instead of $2 million, which is problematic because, in my opinion, only because we have $4 million in requests every year. So. And we know we're not addressing all of the facility needs that we have currently. So I would like to be able to see what that does and manage that to preserve capital investment in our infrastructure going forward. So we are actively working that as part of updating the budget spreadsheets. So I know you don't have a meeting scheduled next week, but if you wanted to, I'd be happy to just cover that item and get it ready for you.
Yeah, we should talk about that because we had talked about the next week, in our schedule, there's a meeting. We kind of said, but on the 9th. The 8th, we're scheduled to have a joint meeting with Board of Selectmen, so we kind of thought we'd probably cancel on the 9th and actually give the room already to Steve, but we could meet someplace else if we have to. So for this discussion, maybe we should try, are most of you available next Tuesday, not 2 weeks, but next week, if we wanted to have a discussion on this? It's really important, so there's a couple things. So Fred and I independently have been mulling this after our last meetings and then the finance P&P meetings and so on. And I think another thing that triggered my mind was when we were talking about this and the idea is if you're going to go out, you're going to put this stuff out to bond, but then you also do the design as part of that. And there's a practical part of me that says, we have this abnormally high free cash as of last year, like millions, right? Not that it's all to be used. It's not less floating around with nothing to do. But we have that. A lot of other things have changed. We always showed before a projected deficit going forward. We don't have that now. So some conditions have changed. So even to me, for the design study, to go to ask the town to borrow $500,000 when we have millions here that we could designate, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think we need to have that discussion.
Yeah, in the capital plan update for the selectmen tomorrow, I did state that the proposal is to fund it cash, is to pay it.
It is.
It is.
Because that's a change from where we were even.
No, the proposal has always been to fund it cash. What's changed is whether you get a debt exclusion authorization on the vote itself. Getting a debt exclusion authorization doesn't prevent you from funding it cash. It's a different process. It's a process we've used in the past. If the boards, that's a policy decision. If
Right.
the boards feel that, we've had this amount that is available, and we can fund it cash, and it reduces our borrowing costs in the future. I have it in here as cash.
That's your recommendation that you gave to us before.
Right.
the Last meeting.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So I just assume that's what we're probably going to do.
Just pay it down.
Okay.
Well, you're right, Bonnie, it doesn't make any sense to borrow money for a design. You know, to borrow money for capital expense does. So,
And I'm trying to envision going to town meeting and say, well, even though we're saying we're not going to do it, but we want to authorize you to borrow this money when we have, from a policy standpoint, I understand the procedure. So it's just the practical part of me says, it just sounds like, what are you guys, nuts? You know, if I'm on the other side of them, I'm like, what?
We've done that in the past, there've
Right.
been
But
borrowing
how do you feel
authorizations
about
we've
that
taken
when
and then
the-
said,
When the amount is 6.5 million?
right.
Well, that's a different discussion.
Okay.
But I still think we need to look at all that as well, because the financial position of the town has changed. And so we need to look at all that and see.
Well,
So-
and I think the
I
other
like
thing-
the idea of borrowing less, or making that
Yeah.
less.
I think the other thing that needs to also kind of come into this is the timing of the library. And I don't know, well, the timing is the same timeline as the fire station.
Yeah.
So it's exactly the same timeline.
That's the thing, it's not in any of these spreadsheets. And if you believe the $6, $7, $8 million number that they presented, saying, oh, well, the library commissioners of Massachusetts will give us half the money, so it's only $4 million. Well, we don't have $4 million planned in at this point.
No.
At this point, we don't have $1 million for Alumni Field planned in here. It's not in our sheets. I guess 400,000 is in for the stands,
Right.
but the million for the field isn't in there.
I don't have
So there's $5.5 million that we know could be really close over the horizon that we don't have planned in.
We don't have any official action on them yet. We don't
Right,
have an
so you-
award, we don't have but realistically, we know that it's a fall town meeting vote. And unlike the fire station where you go out and you get design money first, and then you do your construction money, the library vote is required to be one inclusive vote of design and construction. So you could potentially be going to the fall or the spring town meeting next year with two projects. And one funded in one manner and one, those are the discussions that you guys are going to have to.
And I'm not sure, I mean, the library trustees are an elected board, so they may very well have the right, I don't know, they may very well have the right to bring that to town meeting. And for those old timers, the one group traditionally you never messed with was the library. So I don't know whether that's still the case in town or not, but it may be if they, I don't know whether the selectmen or have the power to put it on the warrant or not if they bring it forward. I don't know what do you know, Bonnie? Or?
The selectmen control the warrant. There can always be a citizen's petition for an article. I think they also control the special election that would be required for a debt exclusion ballot. But that process is easily
Yeah,
developed.
I don't know. I just don't know what
Yeah.
the situation is.
I mean, they do
with-
control the warrant. Typically, they've been respectful of other boards. If they want something put on, they might not support it,
Right.
but they'll include it in the warrant. They can
I
certainly
just
say
didn't
no.
know whether, the library seems to be a little bit like the schools. They sort of have an umbrella
They
that
are
that they
almost exactly.
live under. And I don't know just how all-encompassing the library umbrella is. I just don't know.
That's also the time where we're going to be looking at union contracts again. Back to your point, yeah, this is the first year we're not looking at a deficit going in. But if I remember our briefing from you 3 or 4 weeks ago, that's not the case next year, or at least the year after that.
Right.
No, you said the next 2 years, we're
2
still
years,
looking
2
at.
years is okay after
Right.
that.
And that's
that.
With
that's
my
generally
current
because
projections.
we've got an increase in new money coming in.
Right.
Because of all the buildings going on. But that's gonna, once you get it and spend it the first time, then it's not new money anymore, so.
Right. The other thing that I don't have in here is an update on the school budget, because we got the data, but it was in Excel form, it was not in Excel format. It was PDF document, so it's
Did you ever get the Excel?
nothing yet. So I can't,
Give us a lot more money, but we're not giving you
Analyze.
any information because we don't have
yeah.
it. I'm-
And I appreciate you
You're
making the
saying you
request,
can't
too.
read
That
it.
was-
I support the schools. They just need to give us more transparency if they want us to help them. It just doesn't feel right. But anyway,
So as soon as I have that, I'm going to send out another request.
Okay.
We'll go from there. But I need that number in order to figure out what a level staffing number would look like, because my directive from the boards was to show the level staffing budget
Right.
and then the mission budget.
Yep.
And I know that the schools requested a level service budget, so I've got that in there. But I need to show what the level staffing budget is
show
at
the level
least,
staffing
so.
is. Yeah.
Okay.
When we borrow, does it have to be for a specific thing? Does it have to say it's for the fire station, or it's for a library, or can we just say, hey, we got these, can we look at the thing holistically in the town and say, this is how much we can do inside, and we need so much outside, and this is it, but it's not necessarily one
You
thing or
have
the
to
other?
actually specify it, because
do.
different statutes allow borrowing for different terms. So, for example, the Mill Pond project, I had to go look up, because under Mass General Law, it only allows for a 10-year borrowing, but because it's got federal funding behind it, it allows you to go to 15 years. Buildings can go 20 or 30.
Okay,
Some equipment's 10.
okay, all right, that answers my question.
So you have
That
to
makes
reference
sense.
the exact.
You have to say what it's for. Yeah, it makes sense.
And DOR is pretty picky, and bond counsel is too. They want to know, they want to see that town meeting vote
Yeah.
for
For
exactly
that
what it
particular
is.
thing, yeah, that makes sense. I'm just trying to envision going forward with all these moving pieces.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, in my opinion, I would recommend you ask me to put the library in there at the same timeline. We can always take it out, but all that I've heard, we haven't received any grant money yet, we haven't received any award letters, but we know that it's a next year item, and
For
it's.
planning
But I wonder how many
purposes
people in
only.
town even know that that's on the table. That's the only thing I'm uncomfortable with. I don't know how many people in town even know we're talking about doing that. The fire station's been talked about for a while.
Yeah.
But then there's been no publicity that I know of going out and talking to people, right?
Right.
I know that
And
doesn't-
so, people are definitely supportive of the libraries. I mean, people absolutely. But it's, building another building is different than making sure that you're not cutting the hours over here, or you're not paying them as much as all the men over in this department. I mean, that's a different discussion, right? So,
I can run the review, current debt, current capital spending, add the fire station with the savings program that we, have kind of mapped out at the last financial policies group, and then add another one with the library, and show what all that does to the capital plan going forward. And,
And if you have
then-
the library number in there, you can slide it and see what the impact is.
Well, the other thing is, you got to figure out what's going to be inside and what's going to be outside. I mean, if you're going to authorize, you can, as an example, you can authorize a fire station as a debt exclusion and fund it inside, which was the intent, from the board's discussions for years.
yep.
The getting the authorization to go outside was to prevent an emergency from happening, which we don't foresee, but
And we have emergency funds, we have reserve stabilization funds, those other
But
things as
now,
well.
if you've got the library coming on in the same timeline, how are you
Right.
going to fund that? Is that going to be outside? So now,
Right.
are we,
Right?
that's a policy.
Yeah,
I don't do
well, it is.
policy.
It's a lot. But on the other hand, are you going to ask the town to be funding both of those at the same
In
time?
different manners.
Well, or the same manner, or if you
Right.
do an override for both of them.
Right,
Or, I'm sorry, it's debt exclusion, but
right.
it's a lot.
Well, we don't really even know when the funds might become
Right.
available from the state for the library,
Right.
because they're going to rank the applicants,
Right.
and the most needy will get the funds first.
But they're thinking that they will have some word from the state this summer. And that's why it was like, okay, that's, that pushes things right up to next year.
They've had this train on the
And there's a
track for
3-year
while.
cycle. So it's this year, and then it'll be another round in another 3 years.
So that was my next question was, they say, okay, you're going to get the grant this year. If we don't act on that,
Do you lose it?
then we lose it, and they have to wait,
Probably
The
10
third
years down,
year,
probably 10 years down.
and
or something
apply
now.
again.
Right.
And there's no guarantee
Well,
that they'll
that, you know,
get
it's funny, that was one of the discussions. We said, well, maybe we want to be,
Yeah, exactly.
10th on the list, and let everybody else go, and then we get, we're first on the
Or we
next
can,
round.
or we can let somebody else go in front of us.
Well, that's one of the things that
you
we
know, to
asked,
defer it to the following year.
Yeah, but
as long as we didn't
But
lose
can
our
you do
place.
that? That's the
Right.
question.
And,
Right, we
and
don't know that.
we don't know that yet.
Didn't they do that with the middle school? One of the projects, I remember a vote where we were gonna lose funding if we didn't act on, maybe it was the police station.
We did it with a road project with, actually with Goldsmith Street. There was another community that was eligible for the TIP grant. They weren't quite ready, and they
So
said,
they slid
you
in.
guys can go first. So we got
actually
the,
benefited.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
we got it.
That's
But I don't
always
know
the-
that the library
That's
program
always the
is-
trick with these state grants, where they're gonna pay half of it, because they say, and only if you do it now. You
Right.
know, who's ready to do it now? You got another project on board.
So there's a lot of working parts to this.
Well, the library is, it's either an addition, right, or an upgrade,
Right.
rehab,
Right.
or a whole new.
Right.
I mean, that's a big range.
Well, and they had to, under the grant requirements, they had to identify a site
Yeah.
for a new building, and, they could do rehab to their existing, but they had to have a new one as part of the application.
And interestingly, when the architect gave his presentation at the last library meeting, it appeared as if a new location, not the Morgan property, might be cheaper than moving everybody out of here, relocating them for a year, 16 months, bringing them back in, and maybe not having this space, if it's added onto, to be the optimal configuration. If it's torn down, it's more expensive. So
Yep.
it's, there's a lot to be
Where's the
considered.
other location you're looking at, if not Morgan?
Tennis court.
Oh,
Right over here.
Yeah.
interesting.
And they'd move the existing ones down further, I think.
12-story
The ones we just
high.
paved over.
Kidding me?
No,
We'll knock off this end of the building
And we'll
and build a
build
new
over
building
there.
on that end of the building.
Which is, you just slide the building down, yeah.
Well, and now, yeah.
Amazing.
Okay.
but
Right
And where's,
now,
and
the
where's
heat and all
this new
the other
senior
things
center
are-
going to be?
Yeah.
Over there, then.
But I just want to make sure that people are aware that, there's another $5-ish million
Oh,
out there that
you're
we're not
absolutely
really
right,
planning on.
Fred. It should be,
Right.
it should be on the documents. Even if we keep moving it, it should always be out there.
Well, yeah, because obviously, our whole thing is that we're looking at the whole picture and not just
Yep.
reacting, right?
We'll
It's
just,
got to be
we'll
planned,
put it
that's
in,
the
and
whole
then I'll
thing.
just qualify it with the, these are the outliers.
So
but,
what about all these other things? Like, is there anything being discussed yet? Do we know when we're going to have a number, what the proposal's going to be for turf fields or whatever's going to happen to Alumni Field? What's the timeline on getting that?
That should be coming out, I would
Yeah,
think,
soon,
in the
right?
next
I
few
thought they had a
weeks.
study coming out.
They do, yeah. I just don't know when the deadline was,
Yeah.
but I think it's like 2 weeks or so. It should be fairly
Right,
quickly.
right, yeah.
And then there's Cooper.
And then there's land, right, Cooper?
There's nothing, I don't have anything put in anywhere for,
So you're not expecting that, anything on?
I don't have anything for it, because we don't have anything. We don't have a, valid notice, we don't have, so there's a lot of discussions going on, but I don't
But
have.
when we have these bigger discussions about inside, outside the levy, things like that, if the selectmen have said it's a commitment to do something with that, and I don't know, I've heard different things at different times, but it's like you said, it's still got to be in the,
Well, yeah, what I have going forward into the budget is about $2 million annually that we've eked out of the budget over the last 10 years to address capital. That started off at, a couple $100,000, and
Right.
we're up to 2 million.
right?
Half of that 2 million arguably could be non-recurring if you had a problem in a fiscal year, because it's from undesignated. So if you don't generate the extra funds, or you have a revenue shortfall or whatever, you're not going to generate that. But say, we've been good at doing that so far. So say it's 2 million. If you're trying to add additional capital projects inside the levy, it can only come from that 2 million or retired debt service.
Right.
The retired debt service is going to go to the fire station, in theory, at this point, for the school
Right.
buildings that are coming off. Those are the only two projects coming off in 2020 and 2023. And that was going to be used to fund the station. I don't have any debt service coming on after that. I don't have anything coming off. So the only thing I'll have is the incremental amount from the fire station as the debt gets paid down. So it's either going to come from that 2 million that I have allocated for capital, of which some of it's going to go to the fire station, some amount, either 300 or 600,000 a year, or it's going to be funded outside, or, I mean, those are the decisions.
Yeah, and the other night when we had our initial feasibility prioritization meeting, there's a lot of projects on this list, which only encompasses 5 buildings in
Right,
town.
it was the whole,
that we have just not done, and with good reason. Some of it's not necessary. But I'm working on this list. We're going to have a meeting on the 9th. Bonnie gave us the room for that.
Betsy, but that's okay.
And I hope to get this out in the next day or so with all the projects that we have done and the ones that have been deferred.
yep. Yeah, I mean, that study, I think it identified an average of $1 million a year that you needed to, there were some years it was like 60,000, and some years it was 2 million, but I think it averaged $1 million a year.
Oh, there was a late request, I saw an email from somebody, maybe Joe or somebody, who wanted to put some paving project for the schools on this list.
Well, we have in our request, and Bonnie has it figured in, we have $390,000 allocated for paving curb and sidewalk at Russell Street School for fiscal year 17. However, with the advent of the alumni field work, a lot of the work that we contemplated doing would get torn up.
Okay.
Once alumni gets
So you've got a
done.
domino that we need to figure out, but, okay.
And quite frankly, we have, and I need to get with Bonnie on this, we need to understand how much money we have left at Shaker Lane.
Okay.
Because Daryl's sheets and your sheets, the totals kind of add up, except for Shaker Lane. I think we're about 20 grand apart, but we think maybe you have that somewhere else. So we need to look at,
Yeah, I can
Or you
just print the
coded
detail
stuff.
reports, yeah.
yeah. So, but what, we had our PMBC meeting last night, and Russell Street School needs work, Shaker Lane needs work. There's some work that's needed out here in this parking lot. So we had contemplated a line item for non-roadway paving, and that would allow us to perhaps bundle some of these packages for greater efficiency in the bidding process. And, not say, well, we're going to spend so much at Shaker Lane, so much at Russell Street, so much at this parking lot here, but we might be able to bundle all 3 of them together and say, well, give us a bid for these 2 projects and an add alternate for the 3rd one. See if we can get them all in one.
Sure.
Get some
Yeah.
economy of savings, So that's the way we're going to approach that.
Okay, but in any event, it's a couple of $300,000 ballpark, or?
Well, Joe Calentro is getting some numbers from Green Engineering,
Yeah.
so we should have those in
It's a
advance. of
ballpark
the-
anyway,
Yeah.
you'll have numbers to talk about. Okay.
And we also have on here the library roof, which will probably defer. That's $130,000 until we know what we're doing with the library.
Yeah.
The roof doesn't leak now, so let's defer that. So
Yep.
we're going to revisit this list
Okay,
on the
great.
9th.
Whatever, yeah. Okay.
You may have to fix the high school roof.
Absolutely,
I don't have any fix on that one.
absolutely.
It leaks, the new high school roof?
Yeah.
Yeah. apparently damaged when they were cleaning snow off or something.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we spent about 89,000 on it this year,
Right.
and it's still leaking. But there's a lot of damage up there.
But it's the other part of the discussion, though. You don't know what's going to happen, and you have to make sure there's enough money to take care of that stuff.
Yeah.
You have to make sure there's enough to take care of that stuff. You can't put some of that off. It
But I
just
think it'll be
costs you too much.
really interesting to see what the policies that you voted at the committee meeting
Yeah,
last
yeah,
week,
right.
run that through and, show what that looks like going forward, so.
Right.
I'd like to do that exercise because.
Okay. Okay. All right, so I'm going to, you'll have this stuff kind of put together in some in terms of all this capital we just talked about, if we have a meeting next week.
Yep.
That we could review it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the board will vote some recommendations that I can give you and the projections for 5 years or so.
Okay. Are you still, don't you go away for the winter or something like that at some point? Not this year? Okay, it's a
My
beautiful
wife
thing.
won't let me.
Huh?
My wife won't let me.
All right, I'm going to try, people, as far as you know, next Tuesday night would work if we can get a spot and so on. I know you're always so busy, but.
Well,
if you can.
I may be out of town, but
Okay.
I'll try to get back for that.
I will
Okay.
email it out.
Can you look and see if you can get a
before-
room for us?
Yeah.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow, look and see if you can get a
Yeah,
room for us.
for next
For
week.
next week,
Yeah.
the 2nd, February 2nd.
Yeah, you don't have to do it tonight.
No. All right, but we won't know about the state money for a while, is that right?
For the library?
No, I'm sorry, I'm back to operating now, though.
Oh, God,
That's
no,
different than
I
the
won't have a
capital thing,
final
but you
number
won't
on
know
the
that
state until July. It's always June, July. But I'll finalize the projections based on the next few versions of the budget that come
Okay.
out. Usually I fall somewhere in the middle, because the governor's is usually, everybody's great, and then they change as they go through the House and Senate.
What normally happens when the state increases aid to the towns, they raise charges back from the towns. So there's always a netting of some level.
So there's some winners and
Yeah,
losers,
I mean,
basically,
yeah,
where you are,
Bonnie-
right?
Bonnie, you can go through it, but when we do that, but the people jump to, they read it in the paper, and there's always, 4% or 5%, well, they add up, well, it's this much money, well, they don't tell you about the 0.6% or the 1% they take back in
the
charges.
charge.
Right.
So it's a game.
It's a vague,
But the other side, I'm sorry, but the other side is still, the work that we do and what you're still doing with getting sure that we have all the information from all the departments to put the budget together.
Yep.
You still have to be diligent about that. You don't say, oh, there's more money coming in, so now we can just let it go. We still have to do the things to make sure we're putting in the right places in the town. So, all right, I'm sorry, somebody else was going to say something. Okay. All right, so minutes from January 12th.
I wasn't here, but I have a couple of corrections, I
I
think.
made the correction. Did
Well-
you get, I didn't get yours.
Well, I
but
just-
Betsy's.
I just printed them out, and
Let's see if they're ones that I already got or not. Why don't you share them, otherwise we can vote on them, otherwise we'll have to wait till next time.
Yours out. Betsy's out.
the, right below where it says Paul, that,
So I,
the library,
it's not seven.
yeah, you have motion carried. I think that belongs up above, where,
It does.
seconded by Greg
It does.
Champany. And then, in
How that get down
in the paragraph that talks about the defibrillators,
Defibrillators?
there's a sentence in there, it says batteries are non-refundable.
That's exactly what they said, and I.
Or is it
did not-
replaceable?
No, he said
Non-refundable.
It does,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Because I think, and he said it a couple of times.
Well, I guess just because they're old, so I don't know. You could take it out. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't know if it makes any difference anyway, so.
But
Okay.
but then it talks about it, in the next paragraph, it talks about a trade-in allowance. So I don't know.
Batteries were not,
Battery's not
Part of
part
the
of that,
trade-in.
right.
Right.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think that's the refundable part.
And then, where it says looking to the future,
Where?
it's the next last paragraph on the first page.
Okay.
First sentence, media system, if we go, what is the media system?
I forget what that was. Let me see.
Looking at these machines would be compatible with the new media system.
That would, isn't that, if they go down there, isn't that the TV stuff that's going in there, the media stuff?
But the,
Where are we, is this
Isn't
now,
it-
we're still talking about the defibrillators here?
yeah,
Maybe give us a training allowance.
well, it appears as if we're still talking about
Order them tomorrow, we
defibrillators,
would
but
have it. No, it is, but I'm not sure the media system, it goes with all the other equipment, basically, the other similar things, kind of equipment that the,
They were talking- Yeah, and they were talking about.
I think you're right, I think media is probably not the right word. I don't know what the right word's supposed to be, but he was saying that it's compatible with, the other similar equipment and so on that they have.
life safety system, maybe?
Yeah,
Well,
but I
if
don't
they
know.
about meeting, and just say it was the new system.
Yeah. Because it doesn't make any sense. And that's it.
Catch those, okay, good. Thank you for reading them and for doing that.
Recommend approval of the minutes as revised.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, pass, thank you. Okay, I guess that's it. Those are the things on my list, and
So
we'll plan on meeting next week. What's that?
you want to try to schedule a meeting for the 3rd is what you're looking for. I think it's Tuesday night, is that the 3rd?
Second, I think.
Second,
Second.
February 2nd. Yep. So I'll get on that, and we'll find out if we've got a room. It won't be televised, we gave up the televised room, but that's okay, we still have our meeting. And okay. And Steve won't be here. Oh, no, sorry, it's a different week. It's next week, it's not that week. No, I'm confused. Guess it's time to go home.
All right, yeah, the 9th.
Confused. Okay. All right, very good. Any other motions?
Nope.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. All's in favor? All right, thank you. Good night.